today. So welcome everyone with that to our first Readiness Subcommittee hearing of 2024. Hopefully he will be able to join us. We have a new member joining the subcommittee this year, Representative Gooden of the 5th District of Texas. I look forward to working with him, and hopefully when our other subcommittee members free up from their obligations, we can get everybody over here. But I look forward to working with all of you as we go forward through this next fiscal year. Unfortunately, as you can see from these photos, today's topic is not a new issue. Infrastructure across the department and the services continues to age, and the deteriorating conditions at military facilities obviously have broad effects, as you all well know. The neglect, the disrepair, the underfunding of our military facilities doesn't just harm our operational readiness capability. It does have significant impacts on everything, from quality of life for our service members to sustainment, to their ability to innovate, their ability to do their jobs. I am going to spend another couple of sentences here to underscore the most recent and most glaring example of the problems with our aging infrastructure. This GAO report, where we're just showing these photos from on the conditions of barracks across the military departments, I hope has been a real wake-up call for our leadership. We just had reports yesterday of a cockroach infestation down in Camp Lejeune, where we had to move Marines out of those barracks and just had breakfast with the Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps this morning. I can tell you this committee takes these issues incredibly seriously, and it's something that I think we should talk about today for the public to hear that the leadership of the Pentagon takes this seriously and what the heck we're going to do about it. I know Ranking Member Garamendi and I sent a letter to Secretary Austin last year stating our bipartisan commitment to conducting oversight and finding solutions to these problems, because poorly maintained and neglected barracks common sense would say aggravates the recruitment and retention crisis that we're currently experiencing. Disrepair at barracks facilities, however, is only one of the symptoms of the underlying chronic problem. Facility, sustainment, restoration, modernization budget line, FSRM budget lines are routinely underfunded in the budget request every year. These budget lines are routinely used as pay-fors in budget reprogramming requests. Via the FY24 NDAA, this subcommittee authorized amounts for FSRM above the president's request to help mitigate this issue. Underfunding for repair and modernization only causes conditions to deteriorate faster and causes these conditions to accumulate to where I think where we are today. The consequences of that scenario are bleak enough, but infrastructure issues are also prevalent at our innovation and our testing facilities. We rely on RDT&E infrastructure and DoD labs to advance the concepts and capabilities we need to be able to compete with our adversaries. And we have to be prepared for these conflicts. These national facilities are critical to that effort, and frankly, are often overlooked by the department, by the military departments. So, thank you for coming today. I think this is a conversation that our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians deserve, and that the public deserves to hear. I hope that each of you will be able to speak to how we can work together on solutions for transparency in the use of FSRM funds, as well as other opportunities to better address our aging infrastructure. And with that, I will now recognize Ranking Member Garamendi for his opening remarks.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. The hearing's exceedingly important, and I'm pleased that you made this the first hearing of this year. Well, here we are. Here we go again. Everything's important except the maintenance of our facilities. We've been banging this drum for a long time, and we'll have to continue to do so. We've made some progress, but we're not where we need to be. We've increased the facility sustainment, restoration, modernization lines annually, and then we go about reducing the money throughout the course of the year as it's diverted to other tasks. I must say that the problem is not only at the Department of Defense. From time to time, it's seen here in Congress. Specifically, last year, about $13 billion. Let's see, no, 13 new F-35s were funded from FSRM funds. We did that. And so we set our priorities. The photos you put up on the screen are illustrative, and we could probably fill several books as we look across the entire military at the barracks and the quality therein. And unfortunately, barracks is just one part of the problem. So while we have to have safe and adequate housing, and we'll continue to bang away at that, it is a definite recruiting problem. I want to show a young man or a woman, gee, we got some wonderful places for you to live. Take a look at this array of photos and come and join the military. Not likely to do it. So, and we have the laboratories. Mr. Chairman, you spoke to the laboratory issues, and certainly that's a major part of the problem. We will not know if the equipment works, if the newest idea actually has merit, if we don't have labs that are capable of handling and managing the necessary testing of those ideas and facilities. So what are we going to do about it? Well, we did something about it with the family housing. We wrote into the NDAA, the law of the land, that the base commander's fitness report will in part be based upon his or her attention to family housing. So it's on the checklist. You want to move up the ranks? Then you're going to have to take care of family housing. It appears that maybe this is a lesson some of us learned in our childhood from our parents. You're going to be held responsible for making your bed. And if you don't, you're going to get in trouble. In this case, we ought to add to that requirement that the base commander be held accountable and responsible for barracks, and if there are testing facilities and other facilities on the base. In other words, the base commander be held responsible for the quality of the maintenance and efficiency of the facilities itself. I don't know of any other way to do it. We could pass laws, we could do anything, but if you want to move up in the ranks, then this is something you have to pay attention to if you are a base commander or any other specific role at the base. I'll let it go at that. I would ask that my statement be entered into the record because it was wonderfully written by a terrific staff, and I've just skimmed over it. Without objection.
Without it.
Yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Garamendi. I'd now like to welcome and introduce today's witnesses. Each of our witnesses are for their respective departments. An Assistant Secretary of Defense for Energy Installations and Environment. We have with us again the Honorable Brendan Owens, the Honorable Rachel Jacobson, the Honorable Meredith Berger, and the Honorable Ravi Chaudhry. Mr. Owens, let's start with you and over to you for your testimony.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And I want to echo Ranking Member Garamendi that I'm pleased that this is the first hearing that this subcommittee is having as well this year. Chairman Waltz, Ranking Member Garamendi, distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to discuss Department of Defense infrastructure, particularly government-owned and government-controlled housing, and the investments we're making to improve these critical mission enablers. Our installations are the foundations of our national security posture, and I look forward to working with this committee in the coming months to continue aligning our policies and resources to support the national defense strategy and the safety, productivity, and quality of life of our personnel. More than 2 million military and civilian personnel live, work, train, raise their children, and spend time with their families on our 538 installations, supported by an extensive built and natural infrastructure. These places are central to our service members' military experience, affecting their physical health, mental health, ability to carry out their missions, and the overall recruitment and retention of the force. It is therefore both a national security imperative and our moral obligation to ensure our installations are healthy, functional, and resilient. Out of all the infrastructure we provide, our service members' housing has the greatest impact on their quality of life. The DoD has, in too many instances, failed to live up to our role in making sure the housing we provide honors the commitment of the service members and their families and enables them to bring their best versions of themselves to their critical missions. These issues were highlighted in the GAO's report of September 2023, documenting poor living conditions in some of our unaccompanied housing. We appreciate the GAO's work to bring greater focus on these issues facing our UH portfolio and acknowledge that we have a lot of work to do. We anticipate implementing 28 of the 31 GAO recommendations this year. The FY24 NDA provisions and the recommendations in the GAO's report have been instrumental in shaping the priorities of a Tiger team we stood up earlier this month. The Tiger team will focus on determining new configuration and habitability standards, improving accessibility, availability, and reliability of UH metrics, developing standardized preventive maintenance plans and schedules, and identifying opportunities to improve quality of life and resilience. The department also recognizes that our service members are impacted by far more than just their housing. Our entire infrastructure portfolio, workspaces, schools, commissaries, hospitals, parks, child development centers, and more, should be configured and maintained with an intent to improve quality of life and help our people thrive. Over the past 5 years, the department has invested an average of $14.6 billion a year to build new facilities, $15.3 billion a year to maintain and repair buildings and infrastructure, and $2 billion a year on environmental restoration and conservation efforts. Despite this investment, a significant gap persists between installations conditions today and the quality standards that are expected, deserved, and best support warfighter readiness. Not only do we face a growing $134 billion deferred maintenance backlog, but many of our facilities need significant upgrades or outright replacement to meet evolving requirements and preferences. This is especially true in areas prone to extreme weather and other hazards, as aging and failing facilities are far more vulnerable to these threats. We can and must do better. Continued infrastructure challenges or failures negatively impact the quality of service life of service members. This will in turn affect their ability to carry out their missions and exacerbate recruiting, retention, and readiness challenges the department faces. Therefore, we must accelerate our investments while ensuring they are appropriately prioritized so they have the greatest impact. And to that end, we are working with the military departments on 3 lines of effort to guide our infrastructure investments. First, adopting human-centered requirements that will help us create environments that do not just meet utilitarian needs and compliance standards, but promote purpose, productivity, health, and camaraderie. Second, optimizing our footprint to ensure that the scale and scope of our infrastructure is aligned with the needs of our people and their missions. And third, transforming how we manage our portfolio by adopting a sustainment management strategy that helps us target investments that have the greatest return on investment. Your continued support and partnership will be critical for our efforts to improve quality of life for our service members, their families, and the civilian workforce. And we look forward to working with you as we transform the department's approach to our infrastructure investment. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Ms. Jacobson, please, for your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman Waltz, Ranking Member Garamendi, and distinguished members of the subcommittee for inviting me here today to talk with you about the Army's housing and aging infrastructure. But I first want to say that our hearts go out to the families of soldiers who died in Jordan. It is a sad but important reminder of why we do what we do. The need for all soldiers to live and work in safe and healthy environments remains at the very top of Army senior leader priorities. We recognize the linkage between the quality of our facilities and the ability to retain a ready force. With respect to family housing, the Army has made real progress. Our oversight of housing providers has increased significantly, and we are now preparing to institute a standardized quality assurance, quality control maintenance program that will be applicable at all installations. And we are making sure tenants fully understand and take full advantage of the rights Congress has given them. With respect to barracks, Army shares the concern of Congress, as reflected in the 2024 NDAA, that immediate and concrete measures must be taken to address our failing barracks, especially in the wake of the September GAO report. We welcome the codification of these measures into law, and we look forward to working with Congress and with the Office of Secretary of Defense to make sure they are meaningfully executable within realistic timeframes. In sum, the Army will make it work. Our commitment is evidenced by our proposed investment in permanent party barracks, which now exceeds $1.5 billion per year across the future years defense program. And when adding all barracks types across all components, active, guard, and reserve, it hovers at approximately $2.1 billion a year across that same time frame. A number of factors have contributed to the current situation, namely the sheer size of our inventory, the growing backlog of deferred maintenance, the large deficit in permanent party spaces, and ineffective management practices. We are applying a multi-pronged strategy to solve this problem. First, we will maximize every dollar we spend on barracks. Our funding must be focused on bringing as many barracks as possible out of poor and failing category. We will take full advantage of the new authority Congress has given us to replace barracks that are beyond repair using restoration and modernization funding. This approach to inventory capitalization will save time and money, so we thank Congress for that authority. Also, the Army has already committed to increasing our investments in sustainment. This funding will be used for large-scale projects such as roofs and HVAC systems. The goal is to bring as many barracks as possible into good condition and keep them there. Second, we will build a robust workforce of trained civilian barracks managers. We will no longer ask soldiers to perform these functions as a collateral duty. Third, we are taking a hard look at changing the way we do business. This includes how we design our barrack spaces to give soldiers better living experiences. It includes examining our assignment policies to determine whether more soldiers should live off base. And it includes a robust business case analysis of barracks privatization. The Army is ready to move forward with the privatized junior enlisted barracks project at Fort Irwin. That project will go a long way in helping us understand how and where privatization might be beneficial. Underlying each of these efforts is the need for reliable data. The Army will examine our databases to make sure they reflect current real-world conditions as accurately as possible. We need to have good visibility into how we're spending our resources. Obviously, much work is needed to improve barracks. The Army has made great strides in understanding the scale of the problem, as well as the resourcing needs. Now is the time to roll up our sleeves and fix the problem. We look forward to working with Congress to make improved barracks a reality. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobson. Ms. Berger, for your testimony.
Chairman Waltz, Ranking Member Garamendi, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting me to come talk today about our housing and aging infrastructure. The majority of our infrastructure, whether barracks, utilities, our public shipyards, is not in the shape that it should be. As an institution, we have allowed these assets to degrade over time. We have identified and deferred risk, and allowed that risk to accumulate and compound. We've been paying the bill with quality of life and readiness. I'm grateful to the sailors and Marines who have raised these issues with me and with department leadership, to the Government Accountability Office for creating formal reports and recommendations, and to Congress for your attention and for codifying requirements. Your intent in the NDAA language is loud and clear, and your goals for our sailors and Marines are the ones that the Department of the Navy shares. We've got some efforts underway. We've made some meaningful progress, and we've got some significant work left to do. Today's marks a big step forward for the Marine Corps. The Assistant Commandant directed a Marine Corps-wide wall-to-wall inspection of barracks and told them to report back. If your barracks have issues, get out there and own it, he says. ACMAC words are what we are doing across the Department of the Navy. We're getting out there and we're owning it. I talk about infrastructure in support of critical missions, and Chairman, I heard this in your opening remarks. A sailor or Marine recruited and retained, healthy, safe, supported and trained with a physical space to do the work of our national defense will return infinitely more value than the dollars that it will cost. But it'll cost a lot to get it right. And a good maritime fighting force always keeps their eyes on the horizon. We cannot simply accommodate the circumstances that we have always known. We must also anticipate the environment and requirements. The Department of the Navy has advocated for and accelerated opportunities that will yield increased quality of life and competitive advantage. These include using the Congressional Pilot Authority for privatized unaccompanied housing in 2 fleet concentration areas, San Diego and Norfolk. We're also running a Pathfinder project on free Wi-Fi in barracks in Norfolk, as we increasingly hear and believe this resource is a fundamental requirement for quality of life and operational success. We see resilience and efficiency saves dollars and makes sense. And there's a difference between historic and old. At this critical moment, and Ranking Member Garamendi, I heard this in what you were saying, it is action by leadership that is paramount. Thank you for yours, and I remain committed to ensuring that we provide the infrastructure to support our sailors, Marines, civilians, and all of our critical missions. I look forward to our conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Berger. Mr. Chaudhry.
Chairman Waltz, Ranking Member Garamendi, and members of the Readiness Subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss Department of the Air Force's housing and infrastructure programs. As a former Air Force officer and pilot, I've lived in military housing, to include raising a family during the transition to privatized housing. My service has given me firsthand knowledge of how housing can impact the quality of life of our personnel. And as a concerned parent of an Air Force officer candidate, I can tell you that no issue is more personal to me than this one. I consider it my sacred obligation to ensure our service members have safe communities to live in, communities befitting of their service. That's why I welcome feedback in the recent GAO report on unaccompanied housing, and I take the findings very seriously. The department is committed to working with the GAO to address the issues identified at the 2 installations they visited, the 2 DAF installations, as well as the broader feedback impacting communities across our installations. Upon my confirmation in March, my first action was to get to our installations and hear directly from our service members and families, eye to eye. I visited approximately 25 installations and conducted over 40 roundtables with our personnel. I've personally inspected their homes and dorm rooms to gather direct feedback from our service members. My visits included installations that have been recently affected by typhoons, like in Guam or Okinawa, and others that are just now recovering from hurricanes, like Tyndall Air Force Base. My next action was to get to work, and that started with planning the right investments for the future. I'd like to extend my gratitude to the members of the subcommittee here for your generous support and guidance on this front. Pending passage of an appropriation, the department is planning its largest dorm investment program in over a decade, estimated $1.1 billion through FY22 through FY26. This is nearly triple the funding of previous 5 years. If appropriated, the DAF intends to invest in 3 new dormitories from FY24 to FY28 to address capacity shortfalls and recapitalize facilities. More broadly, we are planning renovations and restoration at approximately 60 installations, 23 alone in FY24. Our dorm master plan is critical to this effort, informing investments in places of greatest need for our service members. The department's Infrastructure Council, chaired by myself, provides general officer oversight on everything from investments to implementation of innovative policy initiatives like our Airman Dorm Leadership Program, community partnerships, and new privatization models that'll launch us into the future. We're pulling out all the stops to address GAO findings. We're also accelerating efforts in privatized housing, and I can sum up our efforts in 3 words: oversight, accountability, and where appropriate, enforcement. With the support of Congress, the department has implemented a tenant bill of rights, as well as watch lists and performance improvement penalties for companies that don't meet standards. We have also hired 218 civilians to add direct oversight, including resident advocates, on base to represent our service members alongside the chain of command. As an example of how serious we take this approach, this year the Air Force held project owners accountable for $58 million in costs to address mold problems in 560 units, and more are on the way. In 2023, project owners were held accountable for approximately 600 payments to address health and safety issues, totaling $60 million in cost. But there is more work to be done, and we recognize that. Finally, we have entered into a new era of great power competition in which the impact of infrastructure has become more crucial to the mission. Our adversaries have committed to using both kinetic and non-kinetic means to cripple critical infrastructure nodes. Whether CONUS or abroad, we must ensure vital infrastructure at our installations are resilient, survivable, and ready to meet the demands of more sophisticated threats. If appropriated, we will put FY24 funds to task by employing innovative approaches and technologies to build more resiliency at installations like Patrick and Vandenberg Space Force bases, where partnerships with state and local entities are improving mission capabilities and building the spaceport of the future. We are also focused on resiliency in the Indo-Pacific, and I would like to highlight the installation of a microgrid at Kadena Air Force Base in Okinawa. During a recent typhoon, its capabilities ensured the base weathered the storm without a single power outage. These critical investments could prove to be the margin of victory in great power competition, a competition in which we dare not come in second place. Once again, thank you for your support of our airmen and guardians, and I look forward to your questions.